Hi there, I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com, and I apologize, I was having some technical difficulties going live here on YouTube, so we're getting started a little late with today's class, but welcome, thanks for joining. Today's topic, you may have seen on the channel page, is to give you some tips and some resources for how to practice to change your speech. So many of you were saying that you have practice that you do every day, and that's wonderful if you're able to take the time every day to practice. But for many of us, we're very busy. We have a lot of different things we're working on, and finding time to practice speech can be very challenging. So I have some good tips and ideas for you on how to fit that into your busy day and to get the changes that you're hoping for in terms of being well understood in your personal and professional speaking in English. So feel free to ask your questions at any time in the chat. We can talk about this topic or other questions you have for pronunciation and American accent training. And so I'm going to go ahead and start talking about practice materials. Javier has a question: how to pronounce embed sound in IPA. Embed by sound embed, the vowel E. Okay, so I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, but I'm going to write your word here, the word embed. And I think what you're noticing is that the stress in this word falls on the second syllable. So that first vowel sound is an unstressed vowel. And so it might sound like embed. Oops, this is our vowel with the stress here, short and long, embed. Or it might sound like embed. And there's not really a significant difference there. So the most important thing that you want with this word is that you're very light and short on that first vowel. So it could be embed or embed. I think probably the proper pronunciation is the I vowel, the pink pig vowel, but people are not going to be able to hear the difference between embed and embed, except that when I say embed, it sounds a little bit more like I'm stressing. So try to focus on a nice light touch on that first syllable, and then that might help you. Oftentimes when we see the letter E, we think of the vowel eh. If you asked someone how to pronounce it, they might tell you it had that vowel at the start, but with the way they're actually pronouncing it when they're talking, they might be saying the I vowel, embed. Great question, thank you. Okay, so practicing. So say, for example, I'm struggling with the word embed. I want to learn the correct pronunciation and then begin to practice so I can change that pronunciation. And so what I want to do is be able to hear the differences, be able to know what's happening in my speech versus the correct pronunciation. And so one of the things that I recommend is, first of all, identifying what to be working on. There's so many different things that we could take a look at. And so some ways that you can find out are trying to notice which words you struggle with. So you may already in your mind think to yourself, oh, I have challenges with the R sound or with this vowel sound or on certain words. If you're not sure, then for the rest of the day today, I'm going to suggest pay attention when you're talking at work or talking to your friends, or the next time that you're talking to people. What do you notice in your speech? Are there times that people ask you to repeat? Then try to figure out what were you saying when they asked you to repeat? What was happening in your speech that might need to change? Or what words do you find difficult to say? Do you know, or do you have concerns about certain words that you're challenged with? You can also find out information about what's likely to be in your accent based on your native language. So I often talk about some free resources on my website, speechmodification.com, that will tell you, based on your native language, what accent patterns you're likely to have. And they're called the accent overviews. And you'll find them here on the store page if you go to the free downloads section. And you'll see that for the various languages, you can download a PDF that's going to show you in your specific language, these are the vowel errors and the consonant errors you're likely to make, simply because we learn a sound system in our first language. and that it affects how we speak and hear the next languages. So you can work your way through some of the sound patterns there. And as you're looking at those examples, you'll see, okay, yeah, maybe I have trouble hearing the difference between those two words. Or yes, I notice that I struggle with these types of words. There also will probably be patterns that you were unaware of that you can start to be listening for when you're listening to English. So that's one place to start in terms of knowing what to practice. And then how to practice. What are some tips? One of the first things that I like to tell people who I work with one-on-one and who attend my classes, who take my online classes, is that it's very useful to record yourself speaking, to record yourself when you're practicing. You can do this on your phone. You can use, there's many websites you can use that allow you to record your voice and play it back. And oftentimes people are reluctant to do that. They don't like listening to how they sound. It doesn't sound familiar to them, or maybe they hear a lot of errors and they don't like hearing that. But the advantages of recording yourself and listening are that you can hear things in a recording of your speech that you can't hear or notice when you're speaking. When I'm speaking, I have to think about what to say. I'm thinking about the language to use, the vocabulary, the grammar, the pronunciation, the accent, if that's something I'm working on. It's very hard for me to monitor as I'm talking what's coming out. This is true even if you're not working on your accent. When I am editing videos or making materials for my clients, and if I play back my own voice, I can hear things in my voice that I might not notice otherwise. So it's very useful. And I would say for many of you, you have a recording tool already on your phone. If you need some help and some websites to find to use to record yourself, you can go to speechmodification.com, and I have some suggestions and tips there for recording yourself. So that's one of the good starting places for practice. Then in terms of how much should you practice, what I suggest is that find something that works well for you within your already busy life. And the best thing that you can do is to begin to practice, to build a habit of practicing so that it becomes something that you do habitually and regularly, and then you can have a really effective change. And to do that, one of the things I recommend is practicing at the same time as something that you're already doing. So for many people, they might have a commute to work. They have to drive every day. They're stuck in the car. Maybe you listen to music or the radio at that time. But it's a great time to try to practice your speech because you're already sitting there and you do it regularly and you can remember to do it. You can get that habit. I also suggest, practicing speech while you're washing dishes or folding laundry or something that doesn't require all of your attention and that you do on a regular basis so that every time I go and I see that I need to wash the dishes, I can then remember, oh yeah, I'm also going to do a little bit of speech practice at this time. It's not so hard to do some of these tips I'm going to give you for practicing, but it is hard to remember them. And so if I associate it with something that happens regularly, I'm more likely to do it and I'm more likely to remember. And then I'm more likely to make progress and I'll be happy with myself. Another thing that I suggest is having a way to remember, a reminder. So you might put a little note by your phone, or you might put a little note on the book you read at night that says practice. You can use reminders and things on your calendar or on your phone. I use a pop-up on my phone when I'm trying to remember to do something. And even if I can't practice right at that moment that it pops up, I can pause that and it'll come back to me later and keep me on track for practicing. So having a habit, having a way to remind yourself, and then also keeping it small, setting a very small goal. So we'll talk about that in just a moment, but I see that there are some questions. So the question is the difference between vowel I and vowel schwa in the word unlimited. So again, this is another word where we have a lot of unstressed syllables. These two vowels are the vowel sounds that we tend to use in an unstressed syllable. So in the word unlimited, we have the schwa vowel for unlimited, and the I vowel for the rest of the vowels. And unlimited has second syllable stress. So this vowel I can either be in a stressed or unstressed position. The schwa, when it's unstressed, will be written like this, and when it's stressed, it will be written like that. In the word unlimited, it may have secondary stress. So you might have seen it in the dictionary with this vowel. I would say that unlimited, that these are going to be shorter in duration than this one. So it's all the same vowel sound for these three, and this vowel is more central and lax. These are also lax but high in front, unlimited. And you can hear when I say it, I'm exaggerating a little bit, that I'm really lengthening where the stressed vowel is, unlimited. So I'm not changing what vowel I'm using, it's just how long I'm holding the vowel sound. Thank you, that's a great question. And we have another question about assimilation. When Americans speak fast, would bad man becomes bam ma'am, or in pink becomes in pink, nice shoes, like what happens in British. So I would say that we do have places where we leave sounds out because we're linking words. In your examples, I would say that we don't do any of those particular examples in English. I don't say, I'm always going to put those sounds in for nice shoes or in pink. In pink. The NM one, maybe a little bit. A good place, a good resource I have on my channel page and on my website are my Real Talk videos. That's something we're going to look at in next week's class. Real Talk basically is where I'll take a written sentence and I'll show you where sounds are left off and where we link. So for example, if I'm saying going to go, I can say it with all of the sounds, going to go, but Americans are more likely to say going to go, where we change this oo to an and we link these two, going to, or we also would say gonna, where the D drops out entirely, gonna go. And so we definitely have integration. We'd have linking and reduced sounds in American English. And my Real Talk playlist, also my linking and reduced sounds playlist, will talk about some of the main examples that we use and some of the ones that you can try to incorporate into your speech. That's a great question. Thank you. And another question, in practicing and recording myself, I found I have trouble pronouncing water and fritter. How do you think I can fix that? That's a great observation. So water, I do have a video just about the word water and several videos about what's called flap T. And so there's a few things that can happen in this word. For most people, it's making the difference between using an aspirated T like water versus using a flap T like water. What I like to think about it as kind of a light D sound. So I'm not saying water with a strong D, but I am voicing that T, and it sounds more like water. I'm touching lightly up on the D and then moving into the People do also sometimes have difficulty with the vowel sounds there. So in your case, trying to figure out what's causing the problem with water, because you mentioned the word litter, same thing. These two letter T's make the flap D, and it sounds a little bit more like litter. So I would suggest looking at my flap T videos on speechmodification.com. You can type in American T in the search box, And you'll see a number of lessons to help you with that, as well as on my channel page. Those will probably help you with those words. And it's great that you're listening to yourself and you can hear that difference. That's something that is going to be more noticeable as you're recording yourself, like you mentioned. So Alex has a question. What are the most frequent mistakes in the pronunciation of Russians? So Alex, I'm going to suggest checking out, as I said, on speechmodification.com. When you go to the store page, you can see here the overview of accent for Russian speakers. And that's something that you can download. And I'll just let you know off the top of my head that some of the issues Russian speakers tend to have are the W and V sounds can be interchanged. The Russian R can be different than the American R. There are some vowel differences. For example, on the vowel schwa, like as in fun and such, that Russians tend to do more of an ah vowel. So your word money might sound more like mani, with the two open of a vowel. There's some other vowel differences like the E and I difference in Russian, and a few others. Those are, I would say, the W and V and the vowels are some of the main elements of Russian that can give you some trouble. Also, sometimes a tendency to devoice final consonant sounds. So I also, you can use the download in the store page. And also, for those of you who aren't familiar with speechmodification.com, if you go to our online practice free trial, we have a lot of resources for you there. So one of the things that I've done is there are categories, and you can check out look for your native language. So for example, for Russian speakers, I can just click on Russian, and then a lot of exercises that apply for Russian speakers will be there. So talking about the Z sound at the ends of words, and there's a start page here for Russian speakers. Shows you the top error patterns. So yeah, like I mentioned, V and W, the TH sound, the I sound, the American R. And there can show you which courses I recommend for Russian speakers, practice materials, and information about training options. So here's the session, the overview of accent that tells you about the different patterns. You can download that right from the Russian page as well. So that's on speechmodification.com, and free practice, online practice free trial. And then you can see, look for your category for your language. I can also, as I mentioned before, use the search tool. So for Meg's question, I would type in the search tool and maybe I would just put in the letter T. And then the search tool will show me all of the lessons related to T. So how Americans say the T sound in the middle and ends of words. There'll be one when the T sounds more like D, how to say T in water, little Seattle. So she might want to look for that one. That's going to help her with linking American T. So we had an earlier question about what happens when we're linking words. I can check that out. So this is going to be a great resource for you for practicing, looking for your specific question. If you have a question and you're having trouble finding where the resources are for it, please feel free to email me or leave a comment on any of my videos on YouTube, and I will let you know where I have resources that will help you with your particular question. There's a lot of information out there, my site's included, and it can be hard to find something that applies specifically to you. So I'm happy to help you find the resources. Another great resource on my website are my online courses, and these are really great for walking you through step-by-step how to change your speech, how to practice efficiently and effectively, and answering these types of questions. What are the patterns I need to look for? How can I begin to make some changes on my speech? So on speechmodification.com, go to the courses page, and I recommend starting with the 6-week course for the fundamentals, and then you can look at some of the more advanced courses. Those have a free 2-week trial. So it's a great way to check out if online learning with videos works well for you. You're very welcome. Thank you so much for the questions. So we're talking about practice. Let's spend a few more minutes and I'll give you a few other tips and ideas for how to improve and how to practice efficiently and effectively. So we were talking about building habits, practicing at the same time as doing something else. And then the next thing I want to talk about is just how to really keep it small and realistic. What happens is we become aware of all these things we want to improve and change on, and we get overwhelmed. Maybe I'm practicing on a word and I can do it, and then I go to talk to my friends or I'm talking at work and I'm still mispronouncing the word, or I'm still struggling with my TH sound, or I'm still struggling with my R sound, and I'm having trouble integrating it into my speech. I can sometimes at that point just give up because I feel like, I've worked on this and it's not happening. And what I'm going to suggest is setting a very small goal for a little bit of practice and a little bit of change. And you'll find that if you set something specific and you work towards that goal, you'll make it and then you can add more. So not being overwhelmed by everything there is to do. And knowing a little bit about how to practice and what the levels of practice are can be very useful. So again, this is something that I talk about in my online courses. I work with my one-on-one clients on, but kind of identifying a word or a pattern that you want to work on, and then what level of practice should you be at. So the easiest is to listen and imitate. And we do that here in our online classes where we're working on a word. You can hear it, you can hear me say it and imitate it. Most of the time, when you're aware of what needs to change in a word, for example, water, if you're thinking about it with that light D sound, water, perhaps you can hear it and say it just like I do. It might be different than how you're saying it. When you go to speak, it might not be coming out that new way yet. The next step, so first I'm going to imitate, and then the next step is starting to use it on my own, but not all the time, keeping it sort of small. So if I were working on the word water, for example, I might try to say it in a short sentence, like, I want water. Or I might try to use a repeated phrase practice. So I would say water and another word. For example, water glass, water vapor, water toy, water works. Water isn't the easiest one to practice this on. Something easier might be if I was working on the TH sound, for example, then I could practice phrases like those blank, those people, those things, those activities, those books, those toys, those phones. When I'm imitating, I hear it and repeat it. But when I'm creating, I have to be thinking about what to say, and it's more natural. That's closer to what I have to do in my everyday speech. But it's still easier than using the new pattern all of the time. So I'm going to be very limited and small in what I'm practicing in the creating. And then lastly, I'm going to want to integrate. So maybe once I can imitate, 80% of the time accurately, then I want to move on. I want to spend more time creating. Once I can do these repeated phrase practices, short sentences, when I'm practicing 80% of the time with a new pattern, I want to move on to integrating. It's good to practice at various levels, but keep challenging yourself to move the new patterns into your speech, or you might get stuck at an earlier level. So to integrate into my speech, I'm going to think about when do I have the opportunity, for example, to say the word water. Okay, every time I'm going to a restaurant, I'm going to think about, they're going to ask me what I want to drink, and I'm going to have to say the word water. I'll think about it ahead of time, and I keep it small. I'm not saying every time I say water for the rest of my life, it's going to come out the new way. But maybe I tend to go out to lunch every day at work. Then I'm going to try to think about when I'm ordering water, remembering the new way, maybe practicing on the way there, and then trying to use it in that short, small context. As I said before, what can be challenging is remembering to use our new patterns and getting in the habit of using the new speech patterns and getting in the habit of practicing. So give yourself as much structure as you can to help you remember, and build in some rewards for yourself. Of course, it's rewarding to make the changes in your speech that you're hoping for. But if you have some kind of something that will motivate you to work and to make the changes, for example, say you enjoy watching a TV show at night, give yourself the reward of, if I practice for 5 minutes, then I'm going to watch my show. So doing something that make a positive association with the practice, and again, keeping it small and realistic for yourself can be very helpful. Adding anything else to your to-do list is very hard. So if you can build it into something you're already doing, where it doesn't feel like an extra burden, you'll be more likely to do it. Kurt says he will never be able to sound American. And I say, Kurt, that maybe you can. And the other thing is having a realistic goal of, I'm working towards making improvements. I'm working towards being well understood. I'm working on changing some small things. If you persist and you stay with it, you can achieve anything that you want in terms of your speech. But it is hard work, and it does take time and effort. And so setting some small goals along the way so that you don't lose hope, that you don't become frustrated, and that you have some ways to see your own progress. That goes back to recording yourself. If you record yourself periodically, you can listen to an old recording and a more recent recording and see like, oh, okay, actually, I can hear that this pattern that I've been working on, I am now doing that the new way, or that's coming more easily to me, or I sound more fluent and natural as I'm speaking with the new patterns. So as I said, trying to identify what to practice, how to prioritize. My online courses are going to help you figure that out. But you can also probably sense what you find challenging, or what things you are most noticeable in your speech. You'll notice that more in a recording of yourself. And then some other resources that you might like to look at are some of my previous YouTube challenges. So I have a 5x5 challenge and a 30-day challenge that walk you through some of the most important elements of changing your speech and give you some ideas of where to practice. So you can check those out on my playlists and also on speechmodification.com. And of course, as I said, the online courses are a great way to walk through and practice and make some changes. So today we were talking more in general about changing speech and practice tips and resources. I hope you found some things that you can try out and check out on your own. Next week, I think we'll be moving on to talking a little bit about linking, real talk, connected speech. So some of the more advanced elements of what other things come into play besides just how I'm pronouncing certain sounds or certain words, but how Americans actually talk, and what elements of my accent have nothing to do with whether or not my pronunciation is correct, but whether or not I'm flowing smoothly within using the words and in the pronunciation. So I'm looking forward to seeing you guys here next week for that class. And thank you so much for your comments and questions today, and for being a part of class. I really enjoy hearing what you ask me. It helps me know what topics to talk about in these classes, what new videos to make, and what to include in my resources on speechmodification.com and in my online courses. Thanks so much for being here today. Sorry we were a little late getting started. I'll see you again next Friday for our next class. I'm Christine Dunbar. Remember, if you want to sound American, you can do it. speechmodification.com.